Hi and welcome to the Active Code podcast, brought to you by Aspire Active Partnerships. I'm Paul Griffiths, and joining me each week on the pod is Luke Johnson.
Aspire Active Partnerships is a community of like-minded business leaders who all believe that collaboration in the sports coaching and children's activity sector is essential for success. We've proven that working in collaboration does benefit business growth and essentially helps more children be more active more often.
To combat physical inactivity, we need organisations that are performing at their very best. Organisations will only operate to high standards if they are led well. So, if we can focus on developing high quality leaders throughout an organisation, not just at the top, customers will experience higher quality services, which means heightened enjoyment levels and increased levels of physical activity. And if we do this at an early age, we know that we can build the foundations for a more active, happier and healthier life. The Active Code investigates what it really takes to be a successful leader and how organisations can combat physical inactivity.
We won't be alone through this journey. We are joined by business owners and experts from our sector, as well as inspirational people from outside our industry. We'll understand the importance of physical activity to our guests, reflect on leadership experiences, and gain thought-provoking insights on how we can crack the Active Code and get more children more active more often. If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and subscribe wherever you get your pods.
Welcome to episode 2 of series 2 of the Active Code podcast. The power of positive role models has impacted many lives. From elite athletes, idolising those that have come before them, to children playing in the street, shouting the name of their favourite player when they score a goal through 2 jumpers lay on the road. Our guests today, Alex Wallace and Katie Smith from the Mintridge Foundation, harness the positive power of sporting role models and deliver unforgettable experiences to children and young people in schools, clubs and academies across the UK. The Mintridge Foundation is a registered charity and has impacted on over 60,000 young people since being founded in 2015. They have the key objective, similar to many listening to this episode, to advance the physical and mental health and well-being of children and young people. Alex and Katie, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Alex, could you start by telling the listeners a little bit more about the Mintridge Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the introduction you just gave outlines absolutely everything about what we do and why we want to do it. And I think sport has such a far-reaching impact, which, as you say, everyone listening will realise. But I think on top of that, it's the power of those sporting role models that just add that extra dynamic to it. They allow young people and adults as well to listen in a very different way. I think information and support from them sinks in very differently. And I think messages are the same that teachers, parents, families deliver, but it's coming from an Olympian, a Paralympian that has achieved so much that actually it sinks in really differently. And I think that's what we love and what sets us apart with our programs. And we've been hugely affected, as so many people have, with the pandemic, but our core programs are inspiring young people with assemblies, coaching sessions and classroom sessions tailored to each area, each geographical area, each school, to suit their requirements. But then we follow on from that with a 6-month mentoring program, because there's only so much that can be achieved in a one-off visit, that we actually want to continue that legacy and have as long a lasting impact as possible. So our athletes then remotely mentor some of the students, and that's all achieved through a safeguarded app that we have, where they can really get to know an individual, get to know where that support is needed, whether that's supporting young people on a talent pathway or supporting young people that need help with their confidence, self-esteem, or to encourage them to take part in sport as well. So we absolutely love all the different elements that we can bring. And as we said before, it has such a different impact with every young person that just is the joy of sport. And as we ease out of the pandemic, we can bring back our whole programme where we get to go and watch the athletes compete with the students and their families, to give that wow factor, but to give all members of that family, who are the key decision makers for those young people, to give them the support and show them the importance that elite sport can bring, and sport in general. So it's so far reaching, so diverse, but with really rewarding outcomes.
Alex, you mentioned the digital platform there, the app. Is that something that was there pre-pandemic, or is that an opportunity kind of pivoted and saw that we need to keep in touch with young people, so we've designed the app?
I think it's something that we had before, but we've utilised it so much more in the pandemic. And actually, where we always saw that we definitely needed the face-to-face, when that was removed, the use of the app has definitely increased, and we can share resources, we can share videos, photos, and it's all in a completely safeguarded area, which is the biggest thing for us here. That actually the level that it's been used has increased hugely in the last year for obvious reasons. So we've definitely utilised it more than we would have done if we carried on as we were previously, but really, really helpful in everything that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I bet. And with regards to your own background, you started Katie actually. So Katie, your background, how did you start at Mintridge?
It's a bit of a funny story, really. But I previously was working as a PE teacher, an English teacher, and I've done a lot of netball coaching in the past. So I do have a sporting background to start with, and really randomly, I suppose, met Alex through a friend, and I just remember that the one thing I said was, this lady sounds like she has the coolest job in the world. And I just couldn't really believe that every day that Alex got to go into schools and clubs and inspire young people, see the impact of what she was doing, but also work with some amazing Olympians and Paralympians and elite athletes. And I just kind of remember going, I probably need a bit of that in my life too. So met Alex, and really sort of we're nearly 3 years in now of me being full-time with Mintridge. And yeah, I suppose I get both sides of what I was trying to achieve as a teacher. I get to see the impact of what we do with young people, but also get to still work with them and kind of help facilitate that journey for them, whatever that might be. So
it definitely wasn't a recruitment process that I would usually follow. We met at a party, and then I had and then I had a message from the mutual friend saying, would you like to be put in touch with Katie? So yeah, that's how it all started.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what we've missed in lockdown, isn't it? A bit of socialising, bit of networking. You never know what's going to happen.
So. Absolutely. And Alex, what motivated you to set up the Mintridge Foundation?
Well, I think I've always had an infectious enthusiasm for sport. Sport has always been part of what I want to do. But I think when I look at the core of what we're trying to achieve, it's what was lacking when I was growing up. And there's lots of different elements to that. And I think it's largely around the mental health support and the support network for talented players. So it was very much born out of my own experiences with hockey. I loved hockey as soon as I started playing at the age of 6. I played week in, week out, with the dream to play for England, and everybody knew that's what I wanted to do. That became my identity. I was Alex, the hockey player, and I got to England trials at under 16, and I had complete imposter syndrome when I arrived. I had this complete fear of failure. I was overcome with an internal pressure that I had put upon myself. And in turn, I didn't get selected. And looking back now, I am sure that I didn't get selected because of the mindset that I had, not because of my skills on the pitch. So following that, I then continued to play hockey, but I felt like I'd let people down. I felt like I was a failure. I was Alex, the hockey player, to everyone, but I wasn't really enjoying it. I always say my biggest love became my worst enemy, and I gradually just stopped playing at all. And I think if I'd had a really supportive family and a great network around me, but they didn't necessarily know what to do in terms of how to support that element of it. They'd take me to training, they would take me to all the matches across the country, but actually I didn't have someone that could really help and support. And I think if I had a mentor that had been there, done that, and got the scars, I think I would have coped much better. and I would still be playing hockey today in any capacity, whether that's for England or whether that's at a local club. And I think I started to hear about other people that had been through something very similar in different sports. So at the time, I felt very isolated and very lonely, and I really struggled with my mental health. But I remember at the time thinking, I can't have depression over something as silly as sport, but I absolutely can. And I think that's what really pushed me to make sure that no other young person went through that. And I think the nature of our programs, we can really get to know the young person on a one-on-one basis, so that they can learn those resilience tools. They can learn that, failure is just feedback, and carry on and go. Our England netball ambassador, she's one of the greatest defenders in the world, but she didn't get selected in the under-17 team. And I think if I'd known that, I'd have thought I wasn't this failure. So there's so many elements there that was the sort of the nugget and the starting point, but it's just grown into so much more, and schools are using it for so many different areas, whether that's confidence, whether that's self-esteem, whether that's having a different voice and a relatable voice. I think we've got such a diverse team of athletes now that, again, when I was growing up, I didn't really know who the GB women's hockey team were. It was really hard to find them. So for me, visibility is key, whether that's gender, whether that's background, ethnicity, para sports and so on, because I didn't know who those GB women's hockey team were, but I knew who the England rugby team were in the men's team, which was great. I love watching, I love supporting, but it didn't help me on my pathway. So we're so lucky in the team that we have, Katie, I'm sure you'll agree, with such a diverse group that they can resonate with the young people because they've been through that as well, and they can show if you aspire to do something, you can absolutely achieve it. So there's so many elements.
100%. And I think I was just going to add on to that, from a similar kind of growing up from my side of my family, it was football, and it always has been football, and you can see it everywhere, and we went to matches as a family, and it was very much a family thing. But when I started playing netball, even now, it's only just really flourishing as being on the TV all the time. The girls are so accessible, and I think that is just backing onto what Alex said. That is really what we are trying to do, and we're putting those role models in front of young people to show them that they're real people and they're accessible, and what they are doing is so achievable. So I think we had a similar experience.
Yeah, we'll explore that in a bit more detail shortly. But before we go into that, clearly the power of sport is there for all of us to hear from what you've said, and sport clearly means a lot to both of you. What does physical activity mean to you, Alex?
Oh, wow. I think, again, so many different. For me personally, I'm competitive. That's what I want to be doing when I'm doing physical activity, but I fully appreciate that is not for everyone. So for me, particularly where I am now and with my career, physical activity is giving me that space and removing me from the day-to-day. But I've worked really hard to find something that really works, because there's a lot of, particularly this week, it's Mental Health Awareness Week, there's a lot of great, go running, go cycling, get out there, get outdoors. But for me, I love doing that if I have a goal to achieve, but I can't just go out for a run. I don't enjoy it enough. Whereas if I'm out playing tennis, I have to be completely mindful, I have to be completely present, and you can get rid of all that anger that you've had at the day at the desk and so on. So it's that team element, but it's that competitive buzz that I've just had from such a young age, and it's sort of shaped who I am and shaped what we're doing today. That it just, it's that balance of physical and mental well-being with a great network around me. That's a very long answer for a simple question, but I love it.
No, it's good. Really, really good answer. I think it's good to know it's interesting actually on the competitiveness side of things. You say, do you think does that transition into your role at Mintridge as well?
Yeah, I think so. I'll let Katie answer that one.
Would you like me to answer on behalf of you, Mrs. Wallace? I think the competitive nature of what we do is that, or how it transcends into what we do, is that we celebrate the losses and the wins very equally. So I think we kind of that links to sport in that when we get a program and we see it run from the beginning to the end, we celebrate that and we love that and we get that buzz from getting that program and kind of meeting the outcomes that we set out to do. And I think that kind of links hopefully to sport, but also maybe some of the times when we don't get a program or something doesn't work out the way that we thought it had, we still have that drive to make it what we want it to be. So do I think we're competitive? Yes, I do. Do I think that we are persistent and kind of set out and try and get the win and what we want? Then yes, definitely.
So how do you keep active, Katie?
Well, a range of ways. I mean, as I said, I'm a netballer through and through, so I love every aspect of netball, and if you put me on a netball court, I'd play for hours and hours and hours. I recently got into running sort of in the last couple of years, just because I feel like I learned to enjoy it, so I flipped my mindset a little bit and kind of saw it rather than I'm running to get fit, I'm running actually to clear my head. And it's a bit like what Alex was saying, I'm very present and I'm just enjoying being in that moment. I recently did rupture my Achilles tendon, so I'm changing a little bit of what I'm doing, but just generally walking, gym, kind of a range of all sorts really.
Katie had a great scooter for her exercise while her Achilles was up. So a new form of exercise you hadn't planned before.
Basically where I live now, I've brought adult scootering into a new level of fashion, I think. So everybody's scooting around town now, and I think it was just the kids before, but I'm definitely the cool one now. So I have a scooter.
Love it. I also, going back to this is going back a few years now, but primary school, I used to love netball. I don't know about you, Luke. I used to love playing netball. And it's like, no, actually, you can't play. But can the men playing netball? Is it like adult wise? Is it mixed teams, men only teams?
Yeah. You can. I mean, there's lots of mixed teams coming up across the country now. I think that there's been such a nice transition, especially in the elite level, with some of the women coming across from basketball, for example. So I think that's actually been. Men have now seen that basketball and netball are pretty similar sports, and it's actually a really cool thing. There's lots of dads and brothers across the country now getting involved, and obviously they've seen how competitive it is, how physical it is, and I think actually there's a lot coming up. So yeah, you have to join your local mixed netball.
Yeah, I think I fancy a bit of wing attack, to be honest. I think my daughter, it was her 7th birthday last month, and she had a netball bought for her, so she can't get her out of the garden at the moment. She's practicing her chest passes. Yeah. It's she's actually beat me in a couple of challenges as well. So
we won't talk about. I also think with netball as well, it's so great for particularly primary school age to teach them for so many other sports. It's that because you have to stop, you can't move with the ball. I think it then teaches them to composure side and really think about what the next level is. So there's so many elements that it can transcend into other sports, which is great. So we're netball advocates, you can probably tell.
I think Paul's definitely a goalkeeper or goal defence, something like that. Definitely not on the wing.
I don't know. It depends how tall you are, Paul.
Very tall.
I don't know if tall enough.
How tall am I? 6'2". Yeah. So it's probably
Well, you'd be. I think you still might be a little bit too short for the circle, but it's worth a try.
Too short. Wow. Maybe there's a few people at Aspire actually that might struggle in the height category.
No, it's a great sport for anybody. Everybody can have a role in netball wherever they are on the court. So
similar to rugby, Luke.
Yeah, very similar to rugby in that sense. We touched on kind of mental health a few minutes ago. I think you did, Alex. Starting with yourself, Katie. What are the benefits of physical activity to you? So why do you go to gym? Why do you go on your scooter? Why do you take a walk around town?
Yeah, I think I would actually say that the answer to that's probably changed quite a lot for me as I've grown up a little bit. I would probably say that when I was younger, physical activity was, just part of my week. I'd go to netball. It's where my friends were, that kind of social element. It was so fun. And then I suppose as I've got older, I do value how that physical activity makes me feel and actually how much it changes my day. And I'd probably never noticed before, but just doing a bit of walking or running or whatever that might be in the morning just changes the way maybe I eat for the day and how productive I am at work, the way it makes me feel, how I control a lot of my emotions. And I think the more you understand sort of some of the science behind it, actually I'm putting that on a top of a priority list for me now. So for me, the benefits, obviously it's physical health, but it's also, as Alex has touched on, how it's actually shaping lots of other areas of my life and my energy levels, all those things. So for me, there's a whole host of benefits. I don't know all of the science behind them, but I absolutely do love it, and I feel probably quite lucky that I have that attitude to it, and I've discovered that that's how it makes me feel, and I enjoy it because of that.
Yeah, I think the benefits definitely do kind of transform or change the kind of older you get, I guess. Alex, from your experience working with young people, what would you say the benefits of physical activity are to those?
So I think, again, something we've really learned through Mintridge is, particularly in school environments, there's always traditional sports and traditional school sports, and that you're immediately placed in a category of you're sporty or you're not sporty. And actually what we're trying to do is sport and physical activity means really different things to different people. And you might be out on a netball court in a team environment, which is fantastic, but equally you might be great at archery, which is very individually focused and would suit your skill set more. So I think that is really important to us, is there isn't one answer, and it's finding what works for you as a young person. And it might be the competitive buzz that I've spoken about, but it might be going out for a run, going to a fitness class. There's so many different elements, and I think it's finding what works, which me as a person, it's taken me a long time to work out what really fits and what works with everything I've gone through in sport. That I want young people to realise that at an earlier stage, and that can only come through teachers, families really getting to grips with that, and actually getting rid of these stereotypes and these categories that we're putting people in, which I think is bad for the sporty children, but equally it's bad for the non-sporty children that are perceived to be, because there's no such thing as that. It's what works for you and your family.
Yeah. I think, moving on to that, actually, we'll look at that in a bit more detail now, the role model side of things. So you mentioned there about the non-sporty children. Personally, I can see the impact that role models have on those that are already engaged in sport, especially as you transition through maybe into a higher, maybe elite level sport as a youngster. I can really see that. But how do we use those, or how do you guys use those role models to engage those children who aren't sporty or they're not particularly active?
I personally think we've got, again, it goes back to that previous point. We've got such different personalities within our ambassador cohort that they can resonate with a young person. So that's something that really hits home and is positive for one person might not affect the other, but we're going in on a regular basis to these schools and they're meeting different role models. So someone like Danielle Brown, who is double Paralympic gold medalist in archery, and she can come across as quiet and unassuming. And for a quiet and unassuming child in a classroom to see the success that she's had in archery is huge, and I think that really helps. And I think we're always very keen to let the athletes know that, yes, you're going in and talking about sport and your sporting success, but what else is there to you? What else is there to you as a person, so that you can bridge that gap between the young person and the athlete. So it doesn't make them seem so far away and so unreachable. You're actually, they really love cooking, they really love baking, I love that too. That's how that initial relationship starts, and gradually you will then hopefully be able to help and support them with what works. And that's worked in, using an example of a sporty child, but we did a cricket program. A girl was on one of our great mentees was on a cricket mentoring program, and actually by the end of it, our cricket ambassador Stevie was saying, actually, I don't think cricket is right for you right now. Let's look at your biggest love. What are you getting the most fun from? And they looked at changing sports and looking at netball again. There's a common theme today, isn't there? So I think we're able to do that because of the way the programs work, that you can get to know the young person and get to know them as a whole person, not just Danielle the archer.
And other role models, Katie. So looking at the importance, obviously, engaging children in physical activity. So if we take the elite sports people out of that equation, or maybe keep them in the equation, are they alone going to help engage those children in activity, or are there other role models in those children's lives that also have that importance?
Oh, absolutely. I think, like we say, everything when we go into schools, the messages that our ambassadors are sharing, we get a lot of the teachers saying, well, I've told them this, I've told them this, their parents have told them this. But coming from someone that's been there and done it as a elite athlete or Olympian, Paralympian, it seems like the messages seem to just stick a little bit more than they might do. But those children are surrounded by people that they might not even realize are their role models. And I think that's what our ambassadors are very good at is, they start off by talking about their sport, but the support network that has got them to where they are, including their parents, their friends, their teachers, their coaches, they're very good at talking about how those people have contributed to their lives. So I would say that all of these young people have a lot of different role models in their lives. Some young people don't have as many as others, and I think we want to be able to help those that maybe don't have as many. But yeah, there's a lot of people in their lives that are role models.
And I think as well, because we try to engage the families and the teachers in those programs, we're helping them hear and understand why these messages are being delivered. So we could deliver a message to a student or a young person. That's great, we can hit them, but the key decision makers are sat at home, that if they're not actually following through with it, then that won't help and support. So we bring them in on the calls. They're very engaged in the whole process, because we can then understand and work with the different personalities and also see the relationship grow there. So that's really important to stress that, I think.
And Alex, how many role models do you have, like in your network, that you send out to work with young people?
I always say we're not going to get any more athletes. We're at capacity. And then I just meet another incredible human. They need to be on Team Mintridge. So we have a team of 40 now, which is huge and great. From the very first athlete that came on board in Marilyn Okoro, to see where we've grown now, it's great. So they're all over the country. They've all got really different reasons for coming on board, in that they want to help and support the younger generation in different ways. But it's very important to us what their messages are, and they have to have a real desire to do it. It's not just an appearance fee. There's so much more to what we're doing. And that's why it's a really tough job now. We've got athletes coming to us, but we have to make sure that they're communicating the correct messages, because as Katie's just said, young people look up to athletes no matter whether they're a positive or a negative role model. So we have to be very certain with our decisions with who that is.
So when you're looking for an Olympian, Paralympian or sport professional to join Team Mintridge, what would you say are the 3 key traits they need to have?
Wow. Katie, over to you.
Well, I did have a little think about this. So I think it's very important that they want to inspire, that they want to pass on, their nuggets of information. They want to, support. I think it's really important that they also want to positively influence. And I think because they have had, like I said, lots of role models or lots of help along the way, they want to be that person for somebody else. I think that's really important. And also they really want to give back. I think I know they're all probably quite close together, but it's almost that they're a little bit selfless when they come and talk to us. They want to share and support like they've been supported. Alex, I don't know if that narrows down 3, but
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, one of the biggest things at the moment is that someone knocks Phil Camps, our football ambassador, off the top spot in our annual quiz, but that's come of late, which would be a great advocate. But I think we want a diverse group of reasons for them to come on board. So someone might want to come on and help those on a talent pathway to experience something that they might not have had, but others might want to come on to support students from a similar background that wouldn't necessarily get these opportunities, and they can see that their power and their platform can really help them. And I think that's the biggest thing, that those that fully understand their role as an athlete is so much more than bringing home the medals. I think what they can do is better, and we get a really strong understanding within the first few minutes of meeting or knowing them that they're going to be a great fit, and we know exactly where they'll work well.
Guys, have you got a story that you could share with the audience with regards to the impact that an athlete has had on a group of children or a child in particular? Obviously, we won't name names, but is there a story that you could share with us just to kind of get a feel for the impact that the athletes have?
I mean, I could talk all day. So how long do we have? Katie, you share one of your favourites, and I've got a couple as well.
Well, I think there's some probably generic ones for me, but some of my favourite impact statements or messages that come back from someone that isn't the child sometimes. So for example, I can think of one where one of our mentees was being mentored, and the mentoring journey for her, she was physically active, she liked sport, but she was lacking a bit of confidence in herself and her ability, and actually loved the arts and drama. So by the end of her mentoring program with one of our mentors, she was reciting her and practicing her drama speeches to her ambassador, and from that, her teachers were saying it's just incredible to watch her in school. She's now trying to encourage others to get involved in sport and physical activity. She's setting up her own clubs, and I think that kind of difference and that change in one person, and then having the ability to share that good soul or feeling, or share that message that she's learnt from her mentor, is something that I really love. But we actually have so many. I think you put me on the spot a bit there, Alex, but you can share yours.
I have one of my favourites, I think, is we had a netball programme with Pamela Cookie, and she selected one of the girls at the end to be mentored with her for 6 months, and it was almost the disbelief that this girl had in herself, and the fact that she had, out of the whole school, had been chosen to then be mentored for 6 months, and just see how much her confidence grew throughout that, and not just in on the netball court. We're often questioned why we only select one person, and would that have a greater impact on everyone around them? Well, absolutely this did, because this gave her the confidence to lead her team in a better way, and then the far-reaching impact that has. But it also, by the end of this programme, she put herself forward at the age of 13 for county trials, and it was something that her mum said she'd have never done before, without that support and that belief from an England netballer. But she wasn't successful at those trials. But she went back the next year and tried again. And it was that, again, I think it's quite similar to my own story, that it was that resilience that she'd built in herself that actually she didn't lose that. And at that age as well, for girls, so many drop out of sport, that actually she fought back, she'd used it, and she'd had the confidence of, well, Pam's been working with me, Pam loves me, this county better love me too. So I love that side. But also, I mean, how long do we have?
There are so many.
Disability, with a lot around there, where we've had 2 students that we took some of our Paralympians in, and they didn't feel that sport was for them, but actually seeing someone that had achieved in a very similar situation, they've then gone and gained confidence and joined an inclusive archery club outside of schools. So yeah, it's so powerful in so many different ways, because the athletes are spending that time and really focusing their attention on that one person is huge.
Yeah, I think I think what our ambassadors are really good at doing and what our programs are good at doing is we sometimes introduce sports to schools and introduce activities that it's not through any fault of their own, but the teachers in the school just can't deliver some of those sports in the curriculum. And I think we give those young people the opportunity to find something that they are good at and find something that makes them special. So, there's students definitely that we've come across that they don't take part in any physical activity, but they've had a go at judo and actually they found I'm actually quite strong, or I'm actually quite good at problem solving and I can get out of this hold that I'm in. And that gives them that little boost that goes, actually, I'm really good at something, or I'm special to somebody because I can do this, that, and the other. And I think that's what our programs probably are good at doing.
Just one more question on the role model side of things. I'm going to flip it slightly. What impact does being a role model have on the mentors?
Oh, such a great question. And I think that's something we've learned through the time with Mintridge, in that when we first started it, we thought, this is great for the young people, but what we've actually seen is how much the athletes get back from it. I think, as an example, if you're an individual athlete, a sprinter or a long distance runner, you're out every morning, no matter what the weather is, in the dark, you're training. And when you're far away from a competition, you sometimes think, actually, what's the point? What's the purpose behind this? And then they go into a school and they see the impact that they have with their high fives, with their selfies, with showing their medals to a young person. Actually, that's the purpose, and that's why they love it, which has been so great for us to see that Mintridge has given that opportunity for them, as well as learning from other athletes and learning from different sports, that I think will then help them transfer out when they transition out of their sport and their playing career, because we work closely with an organisation called Switch the Play to really help that process and ease that process, because it looks different for every athlete. So if they can find something through Mintridge that they want to do and have that support network, I think it's great. So it's amazing to see how much they love it.
You've highlighted a lot of success stories, really motivational stories from young people and families, their peers. What would you say, Alex, has been one of the biggest challenges for Mintridge over the years?
Another great question. I think the biggest thing for a lot of charities, particularly in the last year, has been the funding side, and has been just trying to, I think we've shown by all the conversations just how far reaching the impact is, but actually trying to get that messaging out there has been quite difficult. I think Mintridge has very much been born out of passion, and actually now the challenge is being more focused in what we're trying to do and trying to achieve. So it's definitely becoming a charity helped hugely, and really knowing what we want to do and why we want to do it. But yeah, the funding has been huge. Getting to grips with sort of the business world as well, or that we are a charity, but it's understanding that and getting our messages out there. But we're getting there, and as our ambassadors say all the time, challenges are good. That failure is just feedback. So you need to keep practicing what I preach when we talk about those. And actually, it's allowed us to look at where we really want to go with it. That some things that haven't worked, that's fine. Move on. We've learned and go again. So yeah, lots of challenges, but lots of successes.
On the business side of things, Alex, I'm just going to put you on the spot. Is there anything you're currently working on?
Yeah, so we're looking more at strategic corporate partners and having long-term impact there. So working closely with businesses that are also in the sports industry to help us there with their CSR objectives, with their employee well-being, whatever it might be, we can deliver that. And I think to date, it's been very much, and particularly with COVID, we've been guilty or not guilty, however you look at it, of following the funding, which is fine, but actually to get to where we want to be and being accessible and affordable to every school in the country, that's not the greatest process to do that. So having much more of a long-term policy with our partners has really helped us. And I think that's come with the confidence of us as an organisation with what we can outline. And we've got some great support now and some great case studies that we've just started to share, that actually we're confident in knowing what we can deliver and being able to put forward that we could do this. So yeah, there's some really exciting opportunities in the pipeline, and sometimes Katie and I just think back being like, wow, where's this come from, and look what we've achieved to date. So yeah, lots which I'd love to share now, but hopefully in the next few weeks we can.
And what does Mintridge look like in 3 years' time?
So COVID has put a stop to this, but our aim at the moment is to be accessible and affordable to every school in the UK, both primary and secondary, state and independent, and that is through those long-term corporate partners that we've just been discussing, to allow that to happen, because we know it's working. It's just the reach at the moment. We want a bigger team, so to make sprinkle more stardust that we have.
Definitely. I mean, I giggled because I just automatically just said global in my head. I want to take over the world, but we have to do small steps.
But you've got to have that. You've got to have that big goal, haven't you? It's got to be there. You've got to see it, and it sounds like both of you have got the aspirations to do that, and the hard work that you've already put in, and to get through such a challenging time with the pandemic will surely. You can get through anything, right, going forward. If you've got through this, you can get through anything. So
yeah, we survived 2020.
What do you think our sector? So when I say our sector, we're talking about the kind of sport and physical activity space. What do you think we can learn from other sectors to help combat physical inactivity in children and young people?
I think it's going back to the earlier point I said. I think so often it's very generic. It's very with the messaging that we're putting out there around physical and mental health. So yes, go out for a run, that will make you feel better. Well, no, it wouldn't, because that wouldn't work for me. I don't like that internal pressure. I just wouldn't want that. So it's actually being more focused in creating greater opportunities and making sure that they're accessible to everyone. And I think that comes through increasing the diversity of everything that we have available, particularly between the independent sector and the state sector within schools. I think it's creating those role models that, there's a lot around. Ebony Rainford Brent is doing a lot in cricket at the moment. And I think it's just putting that out there much more, that it's not just one size fits all for sport. It works differently for every individual.
How about yourself, Katie? Is there a sector in particular that you look at and think, you know what, they're doing some really good stuff, and we can adapt that into our space?
It's hard, because when I think about this, I don't. My experience is very much in the education space, and always has been. But when I look at other almost corporate companies and really big, high-flying, successful companies, I do think about how probably in sport and physical activity, we just need to spend more time making it a priority, and making sport and physical activity a priority from the bottom all the way up through to the top. So we give such presence to elite sport and the revenue and everything that comes with that. But if we did that at the bottom and we changed all the attitudes and the behaviors of young people from the early ages, I think that, like they probably would in a business, they would look at the small teams, and they'd look at the work that they do at the beginning of a project, and they work on those things until they're perfect and right, and then it leads to bigger things for them. And I think if we did that in the sport sector, we'd probably get a sort of a lifelong attitude to sport and physical activity that's really positive, rather than just these one-off hits of, right, we're going to put a bit of bit of money here and work on that, and then we're going to leave it and we're going to go and jump into another area. And I think that's probably what we should be doing.
Yeah, and I think as well it's the use of tech now. I think this year's taught us that even being apart, it doesn't stop. And I think that's just more investment in tech and sport together and combined. I think you can achieve so much, whether that's through virtual challenges, whether that's through coaching online, whatever it is. Tech is obviously the way forward that other industries are doing really well. During
the pod, we put a big emphasis on continuous professional and personal development. So I've got a question I'll ask each of you, and you can only give us one answer. What book, podcast, or people would you recommend to listeners who want to become better leaders or develop that winning mindset?
I knew you'd come to me first. Mrs. Wallace has a whole list of these that I definitely need to take a few more from. But I've read quite a lot and listened to a lot of Matthew Syed's, a lot of his work. And I think that I love the science behind what he's saying. I love sort of the rationale behind what he's saying. And his background really does come from a bit of a, working through the ranks in sport and high performance sport. But what he says really transcends across all areas and in leadership. And I think he'd just be somebody, if you were going to start somewhere, just even on an audio book would be great to listen to while you're walking. So I've done quite a lot of listening to him, but I know that Alex has a whole list. So
can I have at least two? So I'm very guilty of living and breathing sport, whether that's work, whether that's reading, whether that's podcasts. So I've actually so I'm trying to look at leadership in a business setting. And I've actually just started reading the book No Rules Rules, which is about the founder of Netflix and how he just completely disrupted the industry and how he achieved that. So I'm always really keen to do things like that, because otherwise I get so invested in sport and I don't see anything outside of that. But saying that, I still love my sports books, and I've just finished Gary Bloom's book, The Highs and Lows of Elite Sport. And he is a psychotherapist, and he works with some of the top footballers, some of the top athletes in the UK, and he's created a fictitious version of some of the therapy sessions he's been through. But I really love that because it looks at what it takes to be a high achieving sports person, but equally they're just a normal human like the rest of us, and they're going through day-to-day areas as well. So yes, that was two, wasn't it? Yeah, I'll stop.
3 altogether, that's absolutely fine. And final question: how can sports coaching organisations crack the active code and get young people, more active more often? And we'll go to Alex for that.
I think I've said it lots throughout this whole conversation, but it's working with the individual, not the group. And I think that will then help you. Once you get to know them, you get to know their backstory, you get to know their personalities, you get to know everything about them. You can then point them towards where you think they will fit and flourish the most. And above all, remember that sport is fun and it's the enjoyment. I think that's lost so early on. And that was in my journey. I forgot I was a little girl that fell in love with the game. I just then became going through this process. So find the fun and work with the individual.
I think mine just really goes back to it being a priority, and measuring, physical activity is a priority because it impacts so many areas of your life. It's not just that one moment. So I think for me, if we could make physical activity a priority in everybody's life, I don't know quite how you do that. And also trying to encourage people to make those really small changes to make it a daily habit. I think that's probably how we could start, by getting lots more people more active, not because they're gonna win a Fitbit at the end, or not because they're going to win a prize. It should be, I'm doing this because it's 10 minutes a day is something that's really achievable for me. So I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, thanks both. And I think the link clearly in with the role model side of things is hopefully there for everyone that's listened in on this pod. But really, it's certainly changed my perspective on the role model side of things, and really enlightening. Lots of very interesting points, and also it's really good to hear some of the stories that you shared. I think there's the impact that those 40 athletes that you've got has had on the young people is fantastic. Whether that's from a social, emotional, health perspective, physical health perspective as well. But I think we know that if you're working with people that are having an impact to make young people more confident, more resilient, better leaders, more creative, and developing their positive attitudes, it's for the better. And wish you all the very best in the future for Mintridge. I think it's very bright. I think if you've got people like yourselves involved at the helm, then it certainly will go in the right direction. And as we said before, if you got through that pandemic, I'm sure the future is very bright ahead of you. So I'm also interested in Alex's ultimate book of athlete contacts, which I'm sure many listeners will be jealous of.
It's a great phone book.
So yeah, just to say thank you again for your time. But before we go, people want to get in touch with you. Where do we find you?
So we've got our website, mintridgefoundation.org.uk, and then we're on all social media platforms. I say all, I think we need to get into TikTok and Snapchat a bit more, but we're at Mintridge FDN. So we're constantly showcasing everything that we're doing there on all of our social media platforms. So
great stuff. And you're both on LinkedIn as well?
Yes, both on LinkedIn. But I'd also like to say thank you so much for inviting us on as well. And we were talking about what more the sports industry can be doing, and I think this is just an example of it. I think so often organisations we coach, that's what we do, but what you're doing here with a podcast, with all the other ideas and areas that Aspire are doing, I think lots should be following this example. So thank you very much for including us in this.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Good to speak to you both.
Thank you.
Join us next time for the Active Code podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can connect with us on Twitter @Aspire_partners and find out more about us and the network at www.aspireactivepartnerships.co.uk.